Hello and welcome to the Connection Compass podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Louise Evans. This week marks the first birthday of the Connection Compass, and with it, the opening of Series 5. In this episode, I take a moment to reflect on the journey so far, the process behind the podcast, the dedication and care that go into each conversation, and what it means to keep showing up over time. Building on last week's conversation with Ashley, I explore the depth of the healing journey, connecting with the head, heart, and hara, and learning to listen to those parts of ourselves as guides for growth and understanding. I talk about the intergenerational stories that shape us, the importance of tending to our inner wisdom, and how to stay rooted in ourselves as we walk our spiritual paths. I also share some of my own devotional practices, the quiet rituals that sustain me and support the future direction of this work, as the podcast continues to evolve and carry us towards spring. Hello and welcome. It's Andrea here. I am doing a solo episode this week. Not only am I opening Series 5, as I like to do at the beginning of each series, but also celebrating the official birthday of the podcast. Yes, it's 1 year today. I released the first episode of the podcast. I can't believe I've made it here. I'm really excited and pleased that the podcast has turned out in the way that it has. I just love it so much. I said it last week. I just love meeting people and having great conversations across the world and just making those connections. And I would say about 98% of the podcasts are always planned out first. So there's always a pre-recording conversation just to check the energy and that we match well together. And we're both enthusiastic and energetic, and also to iron out like if there are subjects that people don't want to talk about, or and what questions they don't want me to might not want me to ask, and it's a real collaboration. So when I monitor the stats for the podcast in two ways. So I use two platforms. So I have the official Captivate, which is my official hosting platform, and then I also use Substack as well. So both sets of stats, they show a continuous upward trend over the past year, and where Captivate shows a steady core audience of listeners, Substack continues to reflect the wider reach and the discovery, and identifies a real growing long tail engagement with each episode. So the difference in the figures is reflected in the way of how Substack and Captivate capture their data. But when we look at the podcast and how it's performing in terms of the industry, so around 90% of podcasts never make it past the first 20 episodes. I think this episode is number 51. So the fact that I've done that, I'm a new podcast, an independent podcast, it already places me in the top 10%. And then the median number of downloads per episode after 30 days is roughly around 30 to 40. So mine are averaging about 58 after 30 days, which then puts me well above the global median for a new podcast, for a 1-year-old independent podcast. So the data is really telling me that I'm outperforming most new shows in consistency, longevity, and engagement. I've got a real loyal and stable listener population, and that my reach is expanding internationally. So I think I've hit about 56 countries in total. So thank you to everyone who's listened. I really appreciate it. So We were talking last week with Ashley about how much effort goes into one podcast. It's enormous, really. And but I love it. I really love the podcasting process. So the finding of people coming forward, connecting with them, arranging a pre-recording chat, as I said, just to discuss how the episode is going to go, what we're going to focus on, what elements we're going to bring out, and then we put in the recording. When I do the recording with the other person, I'm just recording the middle part, the main part, and then when I come to prepare the podcast for publishing, I then do the editing and I then record the intro and the outro as well. And I normally listen to each episode about 3 or 4 times. I don't always get the editing right. I really felt the one last week with Ashley was really dodgy. There were a couple of glitches in there, but sometimes it's better. I was in a little bit of a rush last time, was under a bit of pressure, really down to the wire. I've recently taken on a part-time role back in the workplace, and it's really restricted my time that I have to put the episodes forward. So even then, when I have the episode ready to publish, there's the show notes to do. There is the transcript, which it's all generated on my editing tool. I use Ali2 as editing tool. I've tried Squadcast and Descript, and also I've tried Audacity. But Ali2 is the one that I really enjoyed. It seems to flow with me better. It feels quite intuitive at how you use it, and it's quite easy, and I can edit from the script, which is it makes things easier, and then I can zoom in, and any glitches, I can take them out, etc. So even then, when I have all that ready and I'm ready to publish the podcast on Captivate, I still have all the social media posts to do as well, and the podcast goes everywhere. So it goes on YouTube, it goes on Threads when I remember, Instagram, it goes on Facebook, my personal Facebook, and it goes on Substack as well. Sometimes TikTok as well. So yeah, it gets about podcast. And I have a real longevity with the podcast. So I have recordings, people to interview well into spring next year. So there isn't a problem. The podcast isn't going anywhere. It's going to stay with us for a little while longer. Let's see if I can make it to year 2. So the idea for today's podcast, obviously I'm opening series 5, celebrating the first birthday, but I wanted to go in a little bit more depth on some of the things that I discussed with Ashley last week. I wanted to add some more context to some of the things that we discussed. I talked about when we're working towards something and we find ourselves hitting a brick wall time and time again, and we might find that we try for something and we hit a brick wall, we try again, and we pick ourselves up and we try again, and we're just getting the same result all the time. It's something I've come across quite a lot over the years. And we talked about raising frequency, raising the vibration, going above something, looking at it from a higher soul perspective. And when I've had these moments where I've hit a brick wall time and time again, same patterns, same outcomes, I've had to acknowledge that it's not working and take a step back. And in that step back, I might have a rest. I might go and do a course, learn something, read something, get some more information, ask for some support from someone, ask for advice. And then I might meditate, I might journal on that, I might sit with it for a little while and look at it from different perspectives, pull it apart, start to looking at things from this real holistic perspective, that connection with yourself and knowing where you are and really focusing on matching the logic with the intuitive parts of it. So we call it the hara heart head axis. So the hara is in the lower part of the body, in the abdomen. It's our deepest connection with ourselves. It's the seat of our being. It's knowing where we are. It's our deepest connection to the earth, as it's known in somatics. And we can work with these three areas, so the hara, the heart, and the head, and we can get them to work together. And with practice, you can start to learn how they work for you and what they sound like. So in my case, my hara, when I focus on that part and think about a situation that I need to find a solution, it might say, go for it. You'd be really good. And then you come to the heart and you ask the heart, and the heart will say, you'll really enjoy that. You know that's something that you really like to do. It's really in collaboration with the hara. Heart and hara, they're together. They're saying go for it. And then you come to your head and your head might say, oh, what are you doing that for? Don't even think about doing that. You'll be rubbish at it. Don't do it. And then we can enter into a self-inquiry and like saying, well, why? Why is my head saying that? Why is it going against the other parts of me that really want to do this? And it just takes practice. I know it might sound a little bit weird, but after however long, 14, I think I said 14 years that I've been engaging in spiritual practice in terms of meditation, yoga. But actually, I think it's a little bit longer than that if we include the beginning of the yoga practice. When we work with these areas, it's connecting to ourselves, it's making a connection to the very deepest part and core of our being. And I used to, as a yoga teacher, in the years that I've taught yoga, I would say that to make that connection with ourselves first, we would come to the breath. And we can still do that, but having done my somatic training, so I did my somatic training, the first part in 2024 to 2025. And then in September, I started the next part of that. So that training has opened up something really deeper for me, and that the connection, it really needs to start with our nervous system, and it really needs to start with the hara, that midline point of ourselves. And when we have those elements working together, we've got a real good solid foundation then to start to explore our internal being a little bit more and start to gauge experience. Somatics for me has been really powerful. Whenever we're doing any healing work, any energetic work, we meet the samskaras. The samskaras are our wounds, our patterns, our ways of doing things that are sometimes helpful to us and sometimes it's not so helpful to us. When we're doing the somatics, so if you think the somatics is all about the internal body, the internal work. So you have real gentle moves. And it's almost like squeezing the fascia, like they're a sponge, and you're squeezing everything out, all the tension, all the tightness, even your samskaras. So when we're doing somatic practice, often things can come up that need healing. And I found really, really powerful. And particularly this year, because of my age, and if we link it to astrology, I'm in my Chiron return. Chiron is the wounded healer. So it is quite common that we would experience things to come up and for healing. And I've certainly found that true for me. When we come to healing parts of ourselves, we often find ourselves that we come to this journey because we're meeting these patterns all the time that we're not getting out of it. And when we heal ourselves, when we pay attention to that internal world, it helps us to move kind of upwards like a spiral, so that we look at the thing that needs healing from a higher point. And it may be that the things that come around for healing come around lots of different times, but each time we look at it from a different point of view, a different perspective. And when we do that, if there are other people in that situation that you've brought into healing, there's a point where if you've had to let go of anger, you will let go of anger, but you will start to see that person differently. So you might see them from a place of compassion and forgiveness and love, and the animosity that you felt perhaps towards that person will have dissipated and you will feel a sense of peace. It may be that there's a situation where you're stuck in a pattern because there's an element of forgiveness that needs to happen. Now, whether that is a forgiveness for somebody else or whether it's for another person, it will reveal itself to you. And I think the Scorpio moon in me just really embraces this stuff. I really love it. It's like information to me. It's like a big piece, a big jigsaw puzzle of yourself. And I think sometimes when things come up and they aren't very nice, that we have to remember whether we have the agency to say, well, can I sort this out myself? I always say that when things come up for healing for ourselves, they come up because we're ready to deal with them. So there usually isn't anything that feels so overwhelming that we can't deal with it. We're normally in a good place to be able to deal with something. Sometimes it might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but by and large, we can sort it out ourselves with practice. But then it may be that we might need to get some professional help, or we might need to talk to our friends and our family, and that's okay. I think people come to a spiritual path for many different reasons. They start to engage in more spiritual practice. Some people have grown up with those practices. Some people, they come a bit later in life. It certainly came later in life for me. And again, it was getting stuck in these patterns and hitting a brick wall. And I just had this desire to go inwards and explore and finding different ways of doing that. So I did it through yoga, I did it through Reiki training, and then over the years I've engaged in lots and lots of different practices. And to me, I just find it really fascinating and interesting, and I would never ever tell people what to do, like, on a journey. I am there for facilitation, but everything is about exploring from your perception, and you will know right what's right for you. And I know on this podcast, I've been asked so many times, what is my human design? And my human design is manifesting generator. I didn't actually know until people started asking me. And I've never been drawn to the human design. So even when I read the information around it, doesn't resonate with me as much. It's a useful tool. There's something there to consider. But I think when we're engaging in any spiritual practice, that we retain a sense of agency, that we don't lose ourselves within that we don't put the whole of our power into something that's external to us, that we really do lean into and start to work with our inner wisdom. So people might do oracle cards, or they might do tarot cards, or they might go to a Reiki healer and discuss things. But it's really important that you don't lose your power to that you retain it, you retain your agency, and you really learn to work with that inner wisdom. You know yourself more than anyone. So, it's really, really important that you retain that connection to yourself, and you don't give your power away to anything that's external to you. We talked about last week, Ashley and I talked about the healing of lineages, and I wanted to expand a little bit on that as well. So if there's a family pattern or something that has been passed down, and we may not be consciously aware that something has been passed down to us through the generations. But the example that I gave was about my great grandparents who were displaced in Poland. And I mean, we talked about it from a sense of belonging, but there is so much else that kind of comes with that as well that you don't really realize. If you think about somebody being displaced because of war, because of invasion, there is so much there around self-worth and value and identity being taken away from you. And I mean, it's massive, it's huge. I could go into like a whole hour talking about the different ways that something like that might play out through the generations. And it may not be something that we're aware of. If you are sensitive and you tend to pick up things, if you're a bit of a sponge like me and you pick up energies, you will pick up stories, or you'll overhear conversations over the years, and they then become your story. And so these stories start to play out into your life if you don't pay attention to them. And I think that when my family came here, they're quite quiet, quite reserved. So then if you think about me coming to this place and podcasting and speaking, and there's something there, isn't there, about, oh, no, don't want to be seen, just want to keep ourselves to ourselves. So there's all these different ways in which this generational stuff plays out. And I think awareness is healing. So I think sometimes if you're stuck in a pattern and you self-inquire and you ask yourself, why am I feeling like this? Or why am I telling myself that I can't do this? One of the questions to ask yourself, well, whose voice is this? Is this my voice? Or is it somebody else's? Is it a family member's voice? Is it a teacher from years ago? It's part of that, having that connection with yourself, that being able to inquire into your thoughts, into your feelings. Not all of us want to go inwards, though. Not all of us want to turn inwards and look, because it can feel a bit scary, because we have to confront things that we don't really want to confront. But my experience is that it's really helped me to move forwards, and I would not be where I am doing this podcast if I hadn't have done a healing journey. I'm very, very closed in terms of a spiritual journey. So you would never see me practice or me show you what I do on a social media platform. To me, any spiritual practice, whether it be yoga, whether it be meditation, whether it be journaling, whether it would be like a prayer, I would never ever show that aspect of myself in an online space. I would never really talk about something that I was healing on an online space unless I had worked through it and was able to look at it from different angles with a real objectivity. And there's a few reasons why I do that. So firstly, to me, it's a very intimate practice. It's private, it's sacred, it's the deepest connection that I have with myself. It's vulnerability. Secondly, is that if I share from a place that's unhealed, then the outside world might get a version of that that isn't really helpful to them. I recently did a spiritual course, and I'm going to tell you where it is. I did the Priestess Path with Kirsty Gallagher. And first of all, I think it's really important to say I would never consider myself or say that I was a priestess, or I don't use the language of like Reiki master or anything like that, because my purpose, my being is about being here on earth as a human being. That's what I came here to do. That's what I came here to be, to experience the human life. And again, to use those titles, it puts a power that's outside of myself, when really I'm about honoring that power within. But doing that course really opened things up for me about how I saw myself, and that it helped me to see that the work that I've done with the Connection Compass framework is actually a gift, that for some reason I have this body of work that's come into being. It's taken a very long time to come together, and it's now about looking at how we get that work out there. And I've tried it a few times before in a very, very logic way, and keep hitting these patterns, keep hitting these brick walls time and time again, to the point of real frustration and I think exhaustion me, and thinking, I can't do this. I really want to give this up. But doing that course made me realize that I'm looking at it in a very logic way. And actually, there's a way of getting out there that I don't realize, that I can't see. And what I need to do to be able to see it is to just completely surrender and give it over to something greater. It doesn't mean to say I can't take action, but I need to take a step back. I need to surrender so that those answers come to me, and work out how to take it forwards. So one of the things I was going to do was that I was actually going to talk about my plans, about what I was going to do with this work, because I've got a couple of ideas, but I've decided not to do that. So one of the things I'm doing at the moment is a 40-day devotional practice to my voice. And I'm actually just talking. I haven't even got anything written down, which is amazing. Normally, I have to have everything under control, have it all written out, don't trust myself, not to ramble. I mean, it'll be interesting when I listen back to what I've been saying and seeing how much I'm actually rambling, but hopefully I'm not. So I was going to tell you about that, but what I've decided to do is, after my 40 days of practice on my voice, is I'm going to start another 40 days focusing on the Connection Compass framework and seeing what information comes out of that about how to take this work forward. I think what's interesting to say as well about the Priestess Path is that that is another example of me really leaning into myself and understanding about what I needed to do next to move this work forward. And it was something that really resonated with me. So just in the way that the human design doesn't resonate with me, really don't really connect to it, the Priestess Path did. And it's really worked for me. It's really opened things up. It's really enabled me to see myself in this work, and how I need to be, what I need to embrace, become to push it forwards. Yeah. So this is episode 1 of series 5. I've got whole amazing episodes coming up. So make sure you come and join us for those episodes. So next week we have transformational coach and yoga teacher Dylan Alu, and then we have Amy Short, who's a professional organizer. We have Pam Shankar, who's the Universe Cafe owner. And also, who else have we got coming up? We have Sarah Stevens, who is a brilliant PR specialist, and Rafaela Nunes. That's a really interesting conversation around supporting creatives. So make sure you join us for those episodes. I'm really excited for you to listen to episodes. They are brilliant. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Connection Compass. If you have found this episode useful, please leave a review and tell all your friends about the podcast as well. If you have any questions about the podcast episode, please visit Andrea L. Evans' Facebook page. And remember to keep talking, keep connecting for a more interconnected world. See you next time.